There we go. And we are live. Away. What's happening, folks? A warm welcome to Powering Good with Hitachi Vantara podcast series. Catching up once again with, I feel like we're good friends. Whether he denies me friendship or not, I feel like we are good friends. Country manager and sales director, Dennis Naidu. What's happening, brother?
Yeah, all good, Dalen. Yeah, good to be back in the saddle again. It's a new year, and I think it's a new year that's going to be great. Yeah, making some life changes as well. Got to make sure that we fulfill our purpose. Yeah.
Lovely stuff. That's what it's all about. Purpose. Before we get into the nitty gritty of today's topic, my purpose today was to put a smile on your face with a wonderful shirt that has an island-like feel. Are you happy? Are you happy? Are you proud? Are we winning?
I'm very proud of you, Dalen. You got lots of guts to wear that shirt.
Oh, okay. I need to figure out how to get that ready. Touch about golf coming my way. Otherwise, before we get stuck into it, how's the holidays? Did you manage to play some golf? Did you manage to at least have a bit of a stress-free time with the family?
Yeah, indeed. We always try. It's all, it's work-life balance. We still work, we still attend to what we need to, but find time for our families and our. I could have spent more time, I think, this year with him, but yeah, it was quite a busy festive season. Played some golf. Boys are here with me, and swam a lot. Yeah, weather was good.
Here we go. All the right things. A good combination. So I'm excited to chat about today's topics because it's something that is so pertinent to our immediate space that we find ourselves in, whatever city you're living in South Africa and globally. Rapid urbanization. Speak to me because people
Yeah,
are moving. There's semigration, there's migration, there's all the grations that's happening locally and globally.
yeah. It's a fascinating topic, Dalen, and like the previous one where we talked about the utilization of our natural resources. This one's also been around for a while, rapid urbanization, and it's something that is not new. It's not in its genesis. But once again, I fear that this particular mega trend has not got the legs it needs to be addressed correctly. And, rapid urbanization was brought about because of industrialization, right? Industrialization created jobs and opportunities in large centers, which became big cities, or they were developed in big cities. And that attracts a lot of people to these cities. And with that comes a burden on everything in that city. Currently, we are urbanizing rapidly in South Africa. 63% of South Africans are already living in urban areas. And statistics will rise to 71% by 2030. By 2050, we're saying 8 in 10 people will be living in urban areas. And this will increase demand on basic infrastructure requirements. Yeah.
This is intense because essentially we're running out of space. We're fully aware if you are in the urban areas and you have made that move, you'll be aware that things are becoming overpopulated very, very quickly. Bigger pictures to try to break it down simply. Why is it happening?
Yeah. So firstly, we're not running out of space. We're running out of
Okay.
space in for the people that are moving to these particular spaces. But if you took the entire population of the world, as somebody drew a graphic the other day, where if you took the population, some 7 billion people of the planet, and you condensed them just into their cells, you would occupy part of Manhattan. In fact, you'd occupy just Central Park, right?
Wow. Wow.
But I mean that's a very extreme way of viewing things. So we're not
Yes.
running out of space in general. What we are running out of is space where people are gathered, right? Why is it
Mm.
happening? So we have some underlying challenges, right? Jobs and job opportunities drive the economy. Every family unit depends on a livelihood. And when there is no opportunity for them to earn a living in the areas that they live in, then they start to move towards and migrate towards places where there's employment. I myself, I moved to Johannesburg from Durban because of exactly the same thing. The job opportunities are better, the earning potential is better, the opportunities for growth, opportunities for your career and your lifestyle. So that's why it primarily happens. And then, just peeling back the layers there a little bit. you ask the question, then why are there no job opportunities in, in rural areas? But indeed, there should be. South Africa is still very driven by primary industries such as mining and agriculture.
Mm.
But those jobs don't pay as well. Those jobs are not recognized in terms of their certifications and accreditations. So people want to make a career out of farming. It doesn't mean, it means that you're not going to have a sustainable livelihood if you're a farmer, because there's just not everything that you need to be successful. So there's some underlying issues. And then, it's also about ego, right? Because a job as a farmer it sounds less glorious than, I'm an IT programmer, right?
Yeah.
As long as you're part of the ecosystem that's seen as, the glorious jobs, then people want to move, right? So that's why it happens in general, right?
So if we had to break it down to main reasons for this rapid urbanization, we're going with economy, job creation. Is that more or less where we are?
Yeah. And then lifestyle. If you were to move to, I don't know, Parys, right? You'd have lots of great places to visit. You've got pubs and bars, you've got hiking trails and all of that. But, I'd argue you don't have a greater selection of maybe mainstream restaurants. You don't have, facilities for your kids, for education, for healthcare. You don't have, many friends because it's a small town. So, we are social beings, right? We like to engage. We like to interact with people around us. We like to have, engagement with people that have common interests. But, if you're living in a little dorpy with 20 people, after you've met them once, you might choose not to meet 10 of them again ever. And then, then there's only
one
so
braai
often.
Is okay.
100%. So because of this industrialization, and, we keep talking about the fourth industrial revolution, it's just variants of industrialization. It's automation. It's bringing factories. I mean, nowadays the factory is a laptop or a computer, right? So as long as you can bring, as long as you can see an opportunity in this industrialization, then you would move to where that demand is required. You would study to move away from that city. How many people who study in Stellenbosch actually end up living in Stellenbosch?
Yeah.
It's a different question, right? So
that is a whole other podcast series on its own. How many end up staying in Stellenbosch?
Yeah. So these cities provide better commercial opportunities. They provide better returns compared to rural areas in terms of your monetary earnings, your lifestyle, and your the things that you would want to have. If you look at our fiscus, we would spend larger amounts of money on our large metros, Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, city of Joburg, city of Cape Town. Those are areas where we spend the bulk of the money. The smaller municipalities get less money. Also the structure. The metros are fairly autonomous. They operate almost like a state-owned entity would operate. Whereas the municipalities, they work within districts, and the structures reporting up to COGTA to access funds, to get budgets, to build schools, to build hospitals, to build learning institutions, to create jobs. So we tend to feed the system, and that creates a double whammy. People want to move to these cities. Yeah.
I was going to say, because if we look at implications, so take rapid urbanization, we've got industrialization, commercialization. We've got big buzzwords with serious positives and negatives. Implications wise, especially for the big cities and the small ones.
Yeah, that's a big one, right? I mean, so we're stating the obvious, that people are moving and they continue to move, and they're moving at a faster rate. Okay, so that's going to happen. So what does it mean? These cities are not designed, and were never designed to have such large populations. There are very few cities in the world that actually have town planning that is modern enough to cater for growing demands. And town planning encompasses a lot of things. So the big one, which we discussed in our last podcast, was energy demands, right? So people need power to run their houses, their new developments. They need power to run their electric vehicles nowadays. They need power to, we need power to run the transport systems. We need power to run all the municipal offices and all the institutions you got to build, the healthcare institutions, education institutions, you got to build all of that to cater for this growing demand. All of that means we need more power. Already we know we're in decline in terms of power source. and you exacerbate the problem by people now demanding more power. So the big one is energy, and it's not easy to feed the grid with extra energy.
Yeah.
The growing trend now is to find alternate, sources of energy, but sadly, that doesn't take place at a development layer. That takes place at a resident layer. So residents look for alternate sources, but a city should be looking. I'm very glad to see that, for example, the city of Cape Town has decided now that they've got permission to buy electricity from
signed off this
IPPs
week.
Yeah, so that's a big move. I don't think people fully understand and appreciate what a precedent that is going to set for energy demand. The second one is transport demands. I mean, today we're recording this podcast and we weren't able to get to see each other or to connect. I'm stuck at home today, even though I wanted to go to the office, because the roads are just gridlocked. Okay, so we have one problem on one highway and all the suburbs around it are now gridlocked. So we have a transport problem. People need to get from one place to the next, whether it's their place of work, whether it is their place of worship, whether it is to see their family, their friends, or even just get to, emergency services.
Yeah.
And our transport system, public transport system, is relatively non-existent at the moment, and for most parts of the world. It's only in developed nations such as most of Western Europe, the US, and parts of Asia Pac, where public transport is effective. In the rest of the world, we have a big problem with transport. Again, it's a snowball effect. You can buy a train, but you need a rail to run it on, and then we steal the railway tracks and the cables that power that up. Right?
These are real problems,
100%. And in general, then you need utilities, right? You would need water, bulk water supplies. We've had for the last 3 weeks where I live, we've had water shedding, and the main reason is not because there isn't enough water in the catchment areas. It's because the reservoir is running out. So the demand outstrips the supply. So we can't get enough water to the residents. And by the way, that's the reason why the highway is closed. People are striking today because of that, because of basic utilities. And basic utilities are, I said this before, I'll say it again. I see absolutely no reason in the world why we can't have free water. That's like a basic human need. And maybe it's idealistic. We should all have free water. We can't provide water. We can't provide. And then the big thing now is if you can't travel anyway, you need bandwidth. Okay. So you need fiber in the ground. You need, cell phone towers. You need mobile towers. And all of these are not just a huge cost to build, but they're huge cost to maintain. And we don't have enough of that to go around. Maximum bandwidth I can get in my house is, to 100 megabytes. But other parts of the world they deliver 500, perhaps even a gig to the house, right? So we have a problem when providing basic utilities. Then we have overcrowding.
Don't you find it scary that as you're going through the list, everything you're saying is so pertinent to our daily lives as we do this live? Like as you go through energy, transport, utilities, and overcrowding and healthcare, you go, these are struggles that we're experiencing and we don't know what the solutions are.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why it's so important that we, the topic we picked around mega trends and they're all real, they're all happening now. It's not something that we can kick down the street, and address at a later stage. These are things that have to be addressed now. These are the implications, and if we don't do it, it would mean that our problems exacerbate.
Yeah.
So utilities are a problem, and then you got overcrowding. Let's take, for example, a stat that came out this week: 25,000 people applied for 8,000 spaces at Wits University.
Just scary.
Now, imagine if the university itself was to accommodate, at more than the 8,500 they initially were interested in. There's 10,000 people on a campus. Malls, shopping malls get overcrowded. Traffic, we're overcrowded.
Yeah.
Healthcare facilities, we're overcrowded. It is not uncommon for us to see queues outside of the clinics, the hospitals, You see queues outside of the public services. So, home affairs and license departments. Overcrowding is a problem. And then that leads to other problems. Hygiene. We don't have enough waste and refuse removal services to cater for all of the refuse we create. And this overcrowding then leads to secondary issues such as hygiene and healthcare. If there was no overcrowding and if everyone was sparsely populated, the pandemic would probably have been easier to control, right? But we have so many people concentrated in such small areas that overcrowding brings, and then it brings what I would call the tertiary impact, which is aggression, depression. People are unhappy. You walk out your door, you drive out on the highway, and you're overcrowded. You feel claustrophobic.
Yeah.
You go to I refuse to go to malls anymore. I don't.
Yeah.
It's just it's scary and it's overcrowding.
And on top of those stresses that you have to deal with the malls in terms of overcrowding, you still have youngsters doing TikToks everywhere. Then you have to film strangers' videos for them, and now you're just going, now I'm in your space and you in my space.
I could probably deal with that, but what's worse though is that the impact it has on my credit card when I get into a mall, because you end up spending more than you intended. Right?
Very different, very different. When I have kids one day, I'll come say, Dennis, I now know what you're talking about. This is what you mean. But in reality, if you bring it back home to South Africa and Africa, the implications are scary, because again, we're experiencing it now live. Load shedding, it's land invasion, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah. So we are arguably not as advanced as some of the other countries and the other cities in the way they've done their town planning and the way they've catered for future demand. Right, we are behind the curve. We talked about utilities. Now, before you even buy power or water, you need a house to live in, and we don't have enough housing. And a lot of the developments are beyond the reach of those that live on the breadline. And so you've got lots of foreigners as well that have come into the country. They're here legally. I'm not going to open up a debate as to whether they are legitimate citizens or aliens. They are here. They are human beings. They need to live somewhere. They need a house. So vast tracts of land get invaded because people have no place to stay. We cannot provide. The cities cannot provide. And again, I can't blame just government. This is a problem that has snowballed long before 1994. It's a problem we should have seen coming. But we don't have enough housing. This land invasion is real. Just around the areas that I live in, there are at least 4 or 5 farms in the last 6 months that have been invaded, and they are large squatter camps, as we call it, or locations. Not to be disparaging. These are places that breed many things. People who do not earn enough money then turn to crime. Then there's the healthcare issue. Living in such squalor, you've got a healthcare and hygiene issue. We don't have hospitals to treat them, or public hospitals. We've got private hospitals that don't treat them. We are the most unequal country in the world. We are the most unequal country in the world. The race has played a big role in our society in defining the haves versus the have-nots. But 10% of our population in South Africa owns more than 80% of the wealth. That's according to World Bank reports. For those of you listening and you don't know, you can have a look at the Gini coefficient. Just go and Google it. It'll show you that we are the most unequal country in the world. And we cannot bring enough services. We cannot bring enough well-being. We cannot bring lifestyle to the majority of our people because of this problem of rapid urbanization, amongst other things. You have crime. I spoke about crime. When people are depressed because they live hand to mouth, many of these people work 14, 15 hours a day. If you consider the transport and the poor transport infrastructure, they've got to take a taxi. It's a 2-hour journey to work. It's a 2-hour journey in the evening. In between, they might run the risk of getting robbed. They might lose their money. That leads to more depression. That leads to a very unhealthy society. And then it leads to, people getting what is the word? People turning to alternatives, right?
Yeah.
It's easier to steal. It's easier to pickpocket. It's easier to
Yeah.
grab something that doesn't belong to you. So these are
Oh,
all problems that start to come with this overcrowding in South Africa. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, even now, as we speak, the past month has been intense with load shedding. We never thought we'd reach a stage where we're going to stage 4, 5, and 6 in terms of local businesses, startups, people traveling to work, etc., etc., etc. We're losing billions every day. And again, like you said, the spiral just goes down and down, and that gap between equal, unequal, rich and poor just gets bigger. And again, what's the solutions? We don't know. How do we
Yeah.
fix it?
Well, yeah, we've got to talk about the solutions in a minute, but let's elaborate a little bit on this load shedding. You got load shedding in water. These are basic amenities people need it. So you set up a squatter camp near, because you don't have a home, so you invade some land near a reservoir. The first thing you do is you tap into the water that's there. Now, the water in the reservoir is designed to accommodate a population density of X. And now you double that, and you don't have enough water. And then you have a problem, because then the haves versus the have-nots. We paid for water. We have the money. Those that didn't have the more money are getting free water. And that leads to a social rift. People are frowned upon. But I argue, I go back to the basics. As a human society, why do we not have free power and free water for our people after hundreds
Yeah.
of years of developing this? After all the industrialization, we don't have that basic necessity. That would create a big problem in the social construct of our country. It breeds more racism. It breeds, hatred. We can't have that. So density and infrastructure go hand in hand, and we have a problem. Town planning is very short-sighted. We don't plan for 50 years in advance or 100 years in advance. We're so far behind that we're just playing catch up. We can't fix the potholes. How are you going to build new roads? How are you going to build new transport networks? We have to fix the existing one where the cables have been stolen and the railway tracks been stolen. So we've got to fix the railway infrastructure. You've got to fix high-speed rail between here and the major cities. You go to some of the places in the world. I mean, even like India, you'd find high-speed rail between Delhi and Bombay and Delhi and Agra and all of that. So people are able to get from place to place. We're very far behind on that. And then schooling is the big one. We saw the beginning of this calendar year, parents getting aggressive outside of school because there's no place for their kids. Now, a school is a finite space. You can only accommodate so many. So, the flip side is, what if you do over accommodate? What is the quality of learning then for these people? You're squeezing 50 people into a single classroom. You can't teach people. They can't learn. So schooling is a big problem. And then universities. Universities is a twofold problem. You've got the problem of lack of space. In an ideal world, every student who wants to study after school should be able to study any subject they want to, right? But now we have not enough space, not enough facilities, and it's costly. Okay. The second problem is the curriculums, because I would argue that if schools placed more emphasis on subjects around agriculture and primary industries, engineering, plumbing, and those things, and those jobs were good jobs, and the earning potential out of those was good, then people would want to study that, and they'd be able to contribute to society, and actually then reduce this overpopulation we have in urban areas, right? Because they're productive where they are.
Yeah. An educated workforce, that's the ultimate goal. Once we get there, our economy and everything will start finding its space, because our numbers will start increasing in terms of those who can contribute and get South Africa and Africa where it needs to be. Just in terms of Africa and some numbers and percentages, are you able just to shoot some off the top of your head in terms of what we're discussing?
Yeah, look, so we are number one in terms of inequality, followed by likes of Burundi, 5.4%, Uganda, Syria, Tanzania, Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, Malawi, Ethiopia, and the DRC. those are countries that follow us, and you would see that they're all African. And the other big challenge here is that out of all those countries, which are arguably less rich than us or poorer than us, we still top
Yeah.
the pile. Right? The inequality issue is a massive issue. It underpins so many social ills and infrastructure ills in our country.
And the scary thing is always that I mean, South Africans are great people, but sometimes we live in a bubble in terms of where we think we are in terms of being ahead of other African countries. But when you look at numbers and stats and circumstances and the big gap, like you said, between rich and poor, it's tough reflections to go, what's the way forward? And I jumped into it earlier, but solutions, how do we fixing it? Like you said, it's going to be a couple of hundred years, generations and generations to come, hopefully have it better than we do. But how do we start putting plans into place, Dennis? What's the way? How do we press the restart here?
Yeah, look, so I mean, Dylan, I think you know me by now. In my previous podcasts, I always try and distill it down to what can we do as individuals, and then what can we do as either
Yes.
society via government and private sector and all of that. So what do we have to do? Primary industries such as mining, agriculture, livestock, we should be bolstering those with economic packages, commercial support out of the likes of the Department of Trade and Industry or Department of Agriculture, DMR, and even private sector, the large Anglos of the world. And we need to be bolstering that part of our economy, because those are not sitting in urban areas, and those are areas that we need to attract people to. And then when you start to look at what does it take for people to be enticed to study that and move to those areas and even have a reverse urbanization effect, those accreditations and training for those industries, people need to see them as quality. It's people brag, I've got a BCom, I'm a CA. Why aren't people bragging that they're a botanist? Or whatever qualification it is in terms of livestock.
Yeah, in the trade, we need a booming trade industry. We need more entrepreneurs to come out of it as well.
100%. And then amenities in the non-urban areas, right? So what is the shopping malls look like? Are there schools? Are there hospitals? We should be developing that to cater for that. People would stay if they had access. Fundamentally, what do we want as individuals? We want to be content in the space we live in for us and our families and have access to the things we enjoy. That's what we want. Okay. Now, if we're able to provide that in outlying areas, we go back. I think we keep drifting towards this topic of capitalism and socialism, but therein lies the truth, right? Is that the developer sees no return on his investment putting up a mall in a rural area. A quality mall. You want to have movies there. You want to have an ice rink there, not just a supermarket. You want to have access to internet cafes. You want a postal delivery service. You want a courier service. You want healthcare. You want clinics. You want tertiary education and schools. So new developments need to encompass all of this. So, top of mind for me when we talk about new developments is always EIS. What is the impact on the environment if we build something here? So always do it right. Plan correctly, spatially, make sure you've got infrastructure, you've got roads, and then you've got education, you've got healthcare, you've got shopping, you've got amenities. One of the most classic examples is what Saudi are doing in a place called Neom. And they're building a city called The Line. And this city is a very narrow city. Yeah. And it goes, from end to end, it's 150 kilometers. Now, here's some things they're doing right there. Number one, no person living in The Line is more than 20 minutes away from something they want. Be that restaurants, be that food, be that education, be that the workplace, whatever. There are zero cars. So talk about the impact to the environment. They have high-speed rail between points, and it takes no more than 20 minutes to traverse from one end to the other. And of course, in between, there's shorter timelines. It is being built upwards with little impact to the environment around them. So not digging up, not trenching, not piping, and all of that. But it becomes a very sustainable community because you've got points of failure for water reticulation are fewer. You've got
Yes.
2 or 3 pipes running up and down. You've got fiber, you've got electricity. The grid is easier to manage. You're easier to maintain it. It's easier to provide spares because you can get spares to this infrastructure quicker and faster. So there's an example of a very smart way of doing things. And they're one of the first in the world. I recently saw that Dubai, because they're also running out of space, what they're doing is building a city in a circle around the Burj Khalifa, but a large city that would house thousands and thousands of people. So it's literally a city in the sky above the Burj Khalifa. And these are innovative ways of doing things, right? So you reduce the impact to the space you need but having said that, there are 2 very different examples. The line is attempting to find space for people where they wouldn't live normally, whereas the new city in Dubai is finding more space for the already overcrowded city. Okay, so but both have to be addressed. How do you find more space, and how do you find better living conditions for people in an urban area, and then how do you attract people to stay away from an urban area? What also helps is the whole work from home, the hybrid working situation, right? So you don't need to jump in a car and drive everywhere. I've got engineers currently sitting in Cape Town supporting my customers in Johannesburg. We have one of our partners with 400 engineers in Cape Town supporting the whole of Europe. It is not uncommon that when you dial into a support line for any IT product, you talking to an Indian somewhere in Bangalore or Hyderabad. To work from home, remote working, hybrid workforces, that will also help in the reversal of this trend in terms of urbanization. And then we need high-speed rail and transport. That's a massive one. The solution is really quite simple. It has to happen. We know what it takes. We know we need railways. We know we need trains. We know we need ticketing systems, scheduling systems, security systems, CCTV. We need all of that, and we need to put that up in all of these urban areas.
Magic. And you mentioned Dubai, you mentioned Saudi Arabia. I'm from Cape Town. We've got an iconic landmark here, a bridge that hasn't been complete, Dennis. That bridge has been incomplete since the start of time. So I'm just going to claim it and say it's going to take us into the sky one day. Any closing remarks of rapid urbanization?
No, I think this is the sort of second mega trend we've touched on today, Dalen. We'll get through another 3 in the next few. But it is an immediate problem. It is a problem that has caught up with us. It is a problem that needs both fixing of what we don't have and rethinking the future. It requires broad mind. Once again, these are big problems that require both public and private sector, and everyone forgets individuals. Dennis Naido, I have to do something. Dalen, all of you.
Here we go. Gotta do something. We'll keep powering good individually and with Hitachi Vantara. Brother, thank you so much for that. Always enjoy it. I leave you inspired with knowledge. I'm going to go phone someone just to tell them about the lekker conversation I had.
Fantastic. Have a super day, Dalen.
Cheers, man.